Story 1. My sister is my theory. Recently found out that my sister is actually my biological mother. I'm 19. I grew up with my older sister, let's call her Rose, who is 34. We were raised in a wonderful adoptive family and always had a great relationship. Rose has always cared for me deeply. I had a warm, loving childhood, and I always thought I was just lucky. The story I'd been told was that Rose and I had drug-addicted parents who didn't care for us. They never fed us properly and often left us for days with other junkie friends while they went off to party. When my mum was pregnant with me, she supposedly had every bad habit in the book. Thankfully, I grew up healthy. After I was born, the only person who took care of me was my sister. When I was about 2 months old, our parents abandoned us in a shopping mall. A kind elderly couple found us and later became our adoptive parents. They called the police, but our parents were gone and their home looked like a squatter's den. We never saw them again. We spent some time in foster care, and after a few months, the couple who had found us and supported us all the way decided to adopt us. I still live with them, and Rose lives about 20 minutes away. I visit her at least 3 or 4 times a week. A few months ago, a friend suggested I do a DNA test to learn more about my heritage. Rose never talked much about our biological family. When I got the results, I learned some surprising things. For example, I'm 50% Ashkenazi Jewish. I also found a match with a woman in the system listed as my aunt. She's 33 and I'd never heard of her. I contacted her, let's call her Janet, and we agreed to meet up. I didn't tell Rose. When I met Janet, I immediately noticed we had similar features, same hair and eye color. I asked if she had any siblings. She told me that when she was 13, her sister got pregnant after a drunken hookup with her junkie boyfriend. A month after giving birth, the sister ran away with the baby after a big fight with their parents and was never found. After about 1.5 years, they stopped looking. I put 2 and 2 together. I asked Janet to show me a photo of her sister, and then we went to her parents' home. Her mum wasn't there, and her father had passed away 3 years ago. When I saw the photo, it was crystal clear it was Rose. Rose is my mum. We were never abandoned by drug addicts. She made the whole story up for me and our adoptive parents. I hugged Janet and told her it was too much to process. I asked her to keep it quiet for now. I went to my best friend's house and told him everything. I've been staying with him for a week. I told Rose and my adoptive parents I was just crashing there to play a new game, and I've avoided talking to Rose ever since. I can't even look her in the eye, let alone tell her I know the truth. What the hell should I do? How do I handle this? Should I tell her I know? Edit, my best friend took me out to a movie and for a few drinks. Don't worry, I'm not drunk. Thank you all so much for the kind words. They helped me feel more grounded. I've decided I'm going to tell Rose everything this week. I just need to figure out how. I'm still torn between easing into it and just laying it all out. I thought about bringing Janet with me, but I'm afraid that'll just make Rose even more upset. I'll keep you updated once I've figured out how to approach the conversation. After seeing a few comments asking about the adoption process, I want to clarify a few things. First, the adoption wasn't instant. From the time that couple found us at the mall to the official adoption took about 1 year. We stayed in a shelter during that time. Rose kept in touch with the couple, and they visited us once or twice a week, or so I was told. Now I don't even know what to believe. Eventually, Rose broke down in tears and begged the couple to adopt us. She couldn't stand the thought of me growing up in a shelter. They agreed, hired lawyers, and finalized the adoption after a few months. At least, that's the version I was told. I don't think our adoptive parents knew the truth. If they did, then maybe that story is fake too. Update 1. First off, thank you all for your responses. They helped me sort out my emotions and prepare for the conversation with Rose. After a week of avoiding her, I showed up at her house unannounced with a picnic basket. It was time to talk. She was happy to see me, but I immediately asked her to sit down because we needed to have a serious talk. I started by saying I knew the secret she'd been hiding from me all these years. Her face turned red and she burst into tears. She immediately understood what I meant. I told her about the DNA test, Janet, and everything else I shared with you in the last post. After calming down, Rose finally told me the truth. She admitted she got drunk at a party and slept with some loser who was constantly smoking and didn't care about anything, let alone a baby. His reaction when he found out she was pregnant? Whatever, I don't care. Turns out he was stabbed to death in prison about 10 years ago. He'd been convicted of drug trafficking, assault, and armed robbery. Rose's mum kept telling her dad to talk her out of keeping the baby. There were constant fights. After I was born, her parents told her right in the hospital that she'd brought shame to the family and they wouldn't help with the baby. That meant Rose had to earn money and raise me on her own. After a couple of months of struggling to balance work and caring for me while depending on friends for money, she had a huge fight with her parents. She told them that if they wouldn't help, then she and I would be better off without them. That night, she ran away. She hitchhiked to a neighboring country and was there by morning. She found shelter in an abandoned house where homeless people sometimes stayed. When I cried too much, she took me to a shopping mall where she also broke down. That's when the couple found us and asked if we were lost. Rose immediately made up a story and gave them a fake name. The police couldn't find us in any system. We stayed in a shelter for over a year until the couple decided to do everything they could to adopt both of us. They didn't want us separated. It took several months and legal help, but it worked. Rose said her parents started looking for her the day after she ran away. She sent them a letter saying she was okay, caring for herself and the baby, and had found kind people helping her. She made it clear she wouldn't return and asked them to stop looking. A month later, they gave up. Years later, her father began secretly searching for her. By then, she was 18. Eventually, he found her and apologized. Over time, she forgave him. He even met me a few times. I knew him as Rose's old friend from the park. He occasionally helped us. Turns out they met once every couple of months. Ironically, I'm glad I got to know my grandfather before he died, even if I didn't know who he really was. Our adoptive family never knew any of this. After hearing her full story, I told her how much we'd missed out on because I never knew she was my mum. But I said I understood why she did it and that she made the right choice. Then I pulled out a sign from the picnic basket. It's a boy. And I brought sweets for a long overdue birth celebration. We hugged for nearly an hour, had a great time, watched a movie, and then I went home to have dinner with our adoptive parents. I'm happy she's my mum. For the first time in years, I feel whole. I don't care that she lied, she did it to protect me. And honestly, I can't imagine how my life would have turned out if she hadn't. Thank you for helping me understand my feelings and work through everything that happened. Story 2. Brother realizes he's not loved. Me adopted brother feels like the family doesn't love him. My parents have 5 children, a sister who is 27, a younger brother who is 6, and then me, my twin brother, and our adopted brother. The 3 of us are 23. John was adopted when his biological parents, close friends of our family, passed away when he was just a few months old. This issue has been building for many years but became more obvious in the past. 5. I remember growing up with John like we were just regular siblings. My other siblings say the same. We played together, fought, made up, and broke our parents' stuff. The last 5 years have been strange. At first, we thought John was acting like usual, but after I spoke to him, we realized things were much more serious. First of all, John moved out on the day he turned 18, which was a surprise. He had good grades, and we all thought he'd go to college like we did. He graduated a semester early and moved out the very day he turned 18, shocking all of us. He'd earned money doing odd jobs for our dad and uncle, bought his own car, and apparently saved enough for an apartment. It was strange, and though our parents were sad, they were also proud of him. Dad offered him money to help him start out, but John refused, saying he wanted to do it on his own. My parents were incredibly proud of him. They don't usually brag, but they told everyone how independent, responsible, mature, and fearless he was. We've always been a pretty close family. I cried the first night John left and begged Dad to bring him back, afraid something bad would happen to him. So when John stopped staying in touch, it felt weird and we missed him. Our parents said he was just busy working, taking care of himself, and that once he got settled, he'd come back around. But that never really happened. He barely talks to Mum and Dad anymore. He still talks to us on birthdays and holidays, but even those interactions feel off. He usually tries to meet us siblings for dinner or drinks on birthdays. On Mother's Day, Father's Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, he drops by quickly and leaves just as fast. For example, our older brother was the only one around during Mum's recent birthday while John visited. He said John acted extremely formal, more like a soldier reporting to a commander than a son visiting his parents. What surprised him most was that John shared all sorts of new things. He has a girlfriend, recently got a dog, and started a great new job in construction. None of us knew this. Dad even joked that they must be terrible parents to know so little about their own son. After John left, Mum looked sad. When my older brother asked what was wrong, she said it felt like John didn't want to be around her anymore and she missed him, but she wouldn't say anything more. That's when my older brother created a group chat with all of us except John, asking if we'd noticed anything strange. We all agreed we'd seen him distance himself over the years, but we'd never had a deep talk about it. Eventually, we agreed to meet with John and talk to make sure he was okay. It took effort to get him to open up, but when he finally did, what he said shook our whole family. He said, "I'm not their real son." We immediately told him that Mum and Dad love him just like we do. But he told us many stories showing how they treated him differently. For example, our older brother could easily hug or kiss Mum on the cheek, but if John tried, she'd push him away. Dad enjoyed talking sports with any of us, but with John, he was brief and distant. Our grandparents never seemed excited to see John. Aunts and uncles never showed interest in him, his hobbies, or school. One time, Dad invited all the boys on a hunting trip except John. He didn't ask John until they were already packing the car. When he finally did, Dad looked annoyed. John said he didn't mind not going, and our brothers noticed Dad seemed pleased. If John asked for help with homework, our parents said they were tired or sent him to his teachers, but they'd happily help any of us. You get the idea. There were many moments like that, and most of us witnessed them. So we knew John wasn't imagining or exaggerating. He wasn't angry or bitter. He said he understood that our parents couldn't love him the same way and that it would be unfair to expect it. That broke my heart. He explained that he turned down Dad's money because he didn't want Dad spending it on him instead of on his real kids. He said he'd always love and respect our parents for the sacrifices they made to raise him, but it was too painful to stay close when he knew they couldn't be the parents he wanted, and he couldn't be the son they wanted. Our oldest sister got very emotional and told Mum and Dad. That sparked a huge argument. Mum cried. Dad punched a wall. They both feel ashamed and insist they love John just like us. Now that John knows they're aware of how he feels, he avoids visiting, which makes sense. We love our brother. Our parents love him too. We all miss him. How can we fix this? Update: my sister just told me that Mum recently asked John if he had inappropriate feelings toward us. My God, that must have made him feel even more like a stranger. First update: I first spoke seriously with my parents. I didn't tell them everything John shared, but even what I did say was enough. These were actions that could only be described as cruel. The conversation was calm but emotional. I say adopted brother here for clarity, but in my heart, he's just my brother.as. I listed everything John remembered. I started crying. Deep down, I wanted our parents to deny it. I wanted them to confidently say they'd never treat him like that and maybe that John remembered it wrong. But they didn't deny anything. When I gave specific examples, they looked away in shame, paced, or hung their heads. But they didn't deny a thing. When I asked why, they often said they didn't realize they were doing it or that they were just inattentive. They repeated that there's no excuse. I asked Dad specifically about the hunting trip. He said it honestly hadn't occurred to him to invite John. I asked why they didn't help with John's homework or make sure he had a safe plan when moving out at 18. I got no clear answer. Then I asked Mum why she pushed John away when he tried to show affection, and her answer floored me. She said very openly that she couldn't ignore the fact that he was now a grown man and not her biological child. She said she was always comfortable hugging my other brothers, both as kids and now. But once John hit puberty, she stopped seeing him as one of her little boys. She said she felt a need to protect us daughters just in case. She admitted it brought her no joy and that she hated doing it, but she thought it was safer to hurt John than to risk hurting us. She even said that when John left, she felt relief. After that, I talked to my older sister, who was still furious. The rest of our siblings were heartbroken too. We all love John and want him back in our lives. We don't want to lose him. I reached out to John and our talk was bittersweet. We were happy to chat, shared inside jokes, and could talk like nothing had happened. But when it came to rebuilding the relationship, John said it would be hard. He said he wanted to be my brother, but around us girls, he felt uncomfortable because of Mum, and around our brothers, he felt inadequate. He said loneliness is awful, but better than feeling like the people around you wish you weren't there. He said he always felt like a family friend who stayed too long. In the end, we both cried. It was painful, but at least we agreed to try and rebuild things as siblings. Story 3. My mother-in-law secretly baptized my Sony. Told my wife that her parents will never again be allowed to look after our son unsupervised. We've been married for 4 years and have a 2-year-old son. About a month ago, it was our wedding anniversary, and we booked a cozy, secluded cabin through Airbnb for a long weekend. My wife asked her parents if they could babysit, and they agreed on the condition that we drop our son off at their house. That was fine with us, as their home was on our way. I was raised Lutheran, and my wife grew up in a Catholic household. Neither of us practices anymore, and we chose not to baptize our son. My mother-in-law doesn't know this, or rather, she disapproves. She believes that if our son isn't baptized, he'll burn in hell. That's the kind of Catholic she is. So we went on our trip. When we returned and picked up our son, I casually asked how the weekend went. My mother-in-law said everything went great and that she had saved our son's soul from the devil. I asked what she meant, and she replied that she had baptized our son that very morning at a church. I did my absolute best not to scream at her in front of my child. I just grabbed my son and left. On the drive home, I was fuming. I told my wife, as calmly as possible, that this would be the last time her parents looked after our child unsupervised. She tried to defend her mum's actions, but I told her we'd talk at home. I wasn't going to fight in front of our kid. When we finally sat down, things quickly escalated into an argument. I told my wife I no longer trust her parents. If they did this behind our backs, how could we trust them to respect any of our parenting decisions? I told her they'd lost my trust and that I would never see her mother the same way again. My wife kept defending her mum, saying she only wanted what was best for her grandson. She even tried to downplay it, saying it was just a little water and some words, and that since we don't go to church anyway, it shouldn't matter. I repeated that her parents will never again be alone with our son. They can still see him, but only when we're present. I also told her that if she didn't understand how serious this was, then maybe we have fundamentally different views on parenting, and we might need to see a family therapist. She started crying and told me I didn't have the right to make this kind of decision alone, that I was being expletive for trying to dictate what kind of relationship her parents could have with their grandson. I told her I had lost all respect for her parents, and I don't know if they can ever earn it back. I don't care if this makes me the bad guy. What they did is unforgivable. They brought this on themselves by betraying our trust. It's been a month, and my wife still tries to convince me to change my mind. But I won't. This is the hill I'm willing to die on. Update. First off, thank you to everyone who offered support and advice. I didn't expect my story to reach so many people. A lot of you asked for an update, so here it is. Turns out, some of you were right. My wife did know about the baptism plans. I asked her directly a few days after posting, and she eventually confessed. My mother-in-law had been pressuring her to baptize our son for a long time. Eventually, my wife gave in. During the pandemic, she worked from home while I still had to go into the office. My wife and her mother began doing Zoom meetings with a priest to start the baptism process. They even lied to the priest, telling him I was okay with baptizing our son but just didn't want to participate. The priest believed them, and they began taking online baptism classes while I was at work. My wife admitted that she had planned the baptism for the weekend of our anniversary trip on purpose. Even worse, my mother-in-law somehow convinced the priest that only she and her husband would attend the ceremony. My wife told me I was never supposed to find out, but her mother couldn't keep quiet for even one day. They had planned to hide the fact that my son had been baptized. I contacted the church and explained everything. To my surprise, the conversation with the priest was constructive. He told me he would take appropriate action to ensure my mother-in-law is no longer allowed at that church, and that he would contact the local diocese to determine what else needs to be done. I haven't heard anything further from him yet. My wife and her mother are furious with me for getting her banned from the church. But honestly, I don't care anymore. The people I loved and trusted betrayed me. I've felt so many emotions I didn't even know I was capable of feeling. My wife is begging for forgiveness, but the fact that she only came clean after I directly confronted her tells me she never would have told the truth otherwise. She says she'll do anything, therapy, counseling, whatever it takes to fix this. But I'm not sure I want to work on the marriage anymore. Right now, I feel like there's no coming back from this. I've already contacted a lawyer to explore divorce and asked whether we can add a clause preventing my wife's parents from having contact with my son unless I'm present. The lawyer is being very helpful, but I haven't filed anything yet. I'm still too angry to think clearly. I want to give myself time to truly understand what divorce would mean for me and our family. My wife and I barely speak now. I go to work, come home, play with my son, go to sleep and repeat. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing: without your support, I wouldn't have the clarity I have now. That's all for now. Thank you for listening to this story till the end. Don't forget to follow our channel and take care.